Hi, this is Elizabeth Gearhart with Fireside. I'm here with Sal Acosta, who is a business broker and managing partner at Landon and Acosta. Do you have a business that you want to sell as soon as possible for as much as possible? Sal's your guy. Hey, Sal.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you very much for having me on your show.
Sure. So you help people sell their businesses, and you have been a business owner yourself, so you really know what struggles they go through and what they need. And so, yeah, why don't you talk about that a little?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I think I bring a little bit of an extra value to the table as a business broker is I used to be an entrepreneur myself. I started businesses from scratch, both an individual business and a franchise. And I know firsthand how hard it is to keep the businesses afloat, to meet payroll, especially now that we're, undergoing the coronavirus pandemic. But even under normal times, it's a struggle. So I can definitely relate to every small business owner out there that is has all this pressure and all this stress running their businesses day to day.
And so when somebody's ready to sell their business, they need a business broker. And what does a business broker do? Why do they come to you?
Well, first, they come to us because we know the process. Most business owners, they're great at running their businesses. Maybe they started it from scratch 10, 20, 30 years ago, but quite frankly, don't even know where to begin in terms of everything. Putting together the marketing documentation, getting the marketing documentation out to the right people, qualifying the buyers, basically what is reasonable to negotiate, what is not reasonable to negotiate. And quite honestly, I believe this is a team approach. So also finding the right lawyers and the right CPAs that can help you, because they may not necessarily be the normal CPA that you use for your accounting books day to day. They may not be the normal lawyer that you use for your legal issues and maybe labor issues, whatever the case may be. These folks are very specialized in these types of transactions. So you need to make sure that you engage the right team and you know the process.
Well, and you bring big corporate experience to small to medium sized businesses. So can you talk about how that is important?
Yeah, absolutely. So before doing this on my own with what we call sort of Main Street businesses and lower middle market, I worked for various Fortune 500 companies and got involved with buying and selling subcontractors or product lines or subsidiaries, whatever. Um, and I kid people, even though that's not technically true, that it's just the same song and dance, except we just put less zeros at the end of the deal. Uh, but certainly when you work with very sophisticated organizations, then at least you get a good exposure to everything that could be negotiated, everything that's possible, all kinds of different deal structures. And then it's on me to figure out how that can fit in the context of a smaller transaction and what's worth it to bring to the table and what's not going to work.
So someday I hope to sell Fireside, not for a while because I'm still building it now, but I'm building it with an end towards selling it. So if I came to you to sell Fireside, what's one of the first things we would do?
Well, one of the first things that I would do is, of course, ask you why you want to sell it, what you plan to do after you sell it. Of course, we're going to talk about valuation, right? Because it's the same thing as selling a house or a car or anything. You don't want to go too low because you leave money on the table, but you don't want to be too high to discourage people from engaging with you. So those are the preliminary things that we talk about, and then of course, all of that is I also have a structured sort of a questionnaire that I go through because we want to create some marketing collateral to allow us to sell the business. Whether it's a lot of times it's what we call like a teaser document, which is just a one, two, or three-page document that you can put into people's hands to basically like a resume, right? Just to pique their interest. The resume is to get you the job or to get you the job interview, I should say. And the teaser is just to have them say, yes, I'd like to learn more about this business. So those are kind of the first steps that we do.
And then you've actually written a book about this.
Yes, correct. Here's the book, Secrets to Buying or Selling a Business. You can get it on Amazon. The electronic version is $9.99. And quite honestly, it takes you through the whole process, from soups to nuts, from again, first starting, oh, should I sell my business? What should I be considering? To actually some of the things that you should be cognizant of when you're negotiating and doing a process called due diligence, and then maybe driving to the close where the money is exchanged hands and everything in between.
So, how many of these transactions do you think you've helped people with over the years?
Well, first of all, I'm a boutique business broker, so I don't try to be like the McDonald's of just try to list everything and try to sell everything. When I engage with a client, it's a very custom and personalized, one-on-one service. It goes a lot deeper. And nothing against McDonald's, by the way. I love McDonald's. But it goes a lot deeper than just, hey, let's put some information on a website and wait for people to call us. But I've been at this almost for, 10 years, doing, 4, 5, 6 transactions a year. So somewhere in the neighborhood of 40, 50, 60 transactions and all kinds of industries.
That's a lot, actually. It's kind of like selling mansions. Sounds like. Well, these are typically multi-million dollar deals, so I guess that's a good analogy. So, what are some of the tips in your book?
Well, I think the first tip is people don't realize how long it takes to sell a business. Usually, by the time they come to me, for whatever reason, they wanted to have sold it yesterday. And the statistics are, depending on the size of the business, it takes 6 to 12 months to sell a business, and people are surprised by how much time it takes. So one of the tips is start early, because if you're thinking, which is a very typical reason to sell your business, and maybe you have a target date that you want to retire, and this is kind of part of your retirement funds, is again recognize it's going to take you 6 to 12 months to do that. The other tip is, um, talk to me early. I don't mind if you talk to me early. Again, if you're planning and you're organized and you're even saying, look, I want to retire 5 years from now, let's start that conversation now, because one of the things that we can talk about is what are the things that make this business as valuable as possible. And now you still have 5 years to execute that, so that when you come to me again in 4 years or 5 years, you have executed some of these things, and it's as easy as possible to share your business as quick as possible. And your business is worth a lot more because you've done some of these things.
That's brilliant advice. It's kind of like what we all do when we're going to sell a house, right? We get the repairman in and we fix everything that we should have fixed like 2 years ago, just in time to sell the house. But if you know and you can plan to maximize the value and the valuation and not get any due diligence surprises or anything, that's going to make it a lot easier to sell your business when the time comes.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things I always tell people is, engage in a process called reverse due diligence, which is, first of all, due diligence is just very quickly and at a very high level, is when the buyer comes in with his CPAs and his lawyers and make sure that everything that the seller has told them checks out, adds up, all the T's are crossed, all the I's are dotted, the accounting books, reconcile and make sense. I always encourage people to engage in a process called reverse due diligence, which is exactly that. We first make believe we're the buyer. Let's do the due diligence. Let's collect all the documents. Let's make sure all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted, for a couple of reasons. One is, you may discover that there's things you're missing. You didn't realize, very simple things. You didn't realize you don't have a copy of the lease. For whatever, you've been there, it's gone month to month, whatever the case may be, you don't have a copy of the lease. Okay, well, let's get a copy of the lease. So you have time to correct these gaps, because what you want to avoid is finding a buyer that's interested. The process starts, everything is going terrific, and now all of a sudden there's a delay because there's missing documentation, and delays kill deals. Once you start negotiating with a buyer, you can speed up, but you can never slow down. So you always want to make sure you have everything ready and organized so you never slow down.
Right. And having done this as long as you have across all the industries, you know what those documents are. So that's great to know because I know well, every time we have to get our tax documents together for our attorney, it's like, what does he need? We don't know what everything that we need. So that's really important. What size businesses do you work with typically?
Well, I typically work with what's called Main Street type businesses and lower middle markets. Just to give you some numbers around that, it's typically businesses that have 10 to 250 employees, anywhere from 0 to 10 or $20 million in revenue. And again, understanding that things are a little bit hard right now with the coronavirus as we're sitting here in the middle of October in 2020. But hopefully break even, positive cash flow up to about 1 million or two. So that's the types of businesses that I work with.
Can you lead me through a recent one that you've done and how it turned out?
Well, a very recent example is this was a Main Street type business. It was a doggy daycare. It was basically a business that did everything related to dogs. So they would do the boarding, they would do the grooming, they even had training. You could leave the dog there for the day. You could leave them there while you went on vacation. Um, Luckily, that was a type of business that is very attractive to a lot of people. Everybody likes to work with dogs. So in that sense, the transaction was very easy to do. It's like everything, just finding the right buyer that works, wants to work with that type of customer, obviously wants to work with dogs, has the money, can get the financing, has a good credit score, and just negotiating all the little details.
So how do you find a buyer? Do you advertise in the classifieds, put it on Craigslist? Just kidding.
No, there's certain websites that we use, certainly. But more importantly than that, um, I always try to, with my team and also the seller, try to think about who could be what we call strategic buyers. So strategic buyers may be people that are in the industry for whatever reason. Sometimes it could be suppliers, sometimes it could be customers, depending on the business. But we try to identify those groups and categories of strategic buyers, um, because let's face it, they have some synergies that they can bring to the table. They have some leverage. And because of that, typically they're willing to pay more for the business. And then it goes back to, we have our marketing documents, whether it's a teaser document or whatever the case may be. My job is to figure out how to contact those people, whether it's because I know them directly, whether it's because I know a banker or a lawyer or a CPA that knows them, whether it's I can get a hold of them through social media, whatever the case may be, and to get that teaser document in their hands, and get the conversation started. I have a lady that works for me that, as an example, if it's a restaurant and we literally want to approach other restaurants, she will literally walk into the restaurant with the teaser document, ask for the owner. Trust me, the owner will come out and meet her, and she'll hand them the teaser document and say, "Hey, we've got a business for sale. That's another restaurant like this, like that, like the other thing. Are you interested?"
Excellent. And you said you work across all industries. So accountants, law firms, everything?
Yeah, that's correct. We're industry, I call it industry agnostic. So, as long as it's legal, ethical, moral, if you want to work with us, I'll work with you. Obviously, my background also includes a lot of manufacturing. So I love to work with manufacturing companies, simply for the fact that, again, I can bring a little bit more professional background, a little bit more expertise to that type of business. But it doesn't have to be that. Again, if you're willing to work with us, we're willing to work with you.
Because really the fundamentals are all the same. I'm right.
Yeah, I mean, every industry has its nuances, and every business has, its drivers of revenue and profit and the way they do marketing. But in terms of the transactional process to sell it, And in terms of the things that you're going to negotiate, there is a lot of overlap. Again, certain industries tend to negotiate certain things in certain ways, but there's a lot of overlap.
So you work with companies across the country, right? Do you do any international sales?
No, typically I don't go international. Typically I just because it's the way it's been, I stay within the United States. Um, now that everybody's getting used to doing a lot more Zoom and video chats and things like that, it has certainly opened things up. And I shouldn't say that, I've done a couple of deals with people from Europe.
Okay.
But again, it's certainly not something that I look for, or something that I market. Usually it starts with some connection in the US that then leads over there.
Okay. And you've lived all over the place. And so you deal with people all over the country, and you can probably say, hey, I live near there at one time. I know we were talking, you live near my daughter now. So you're happy to broker a deal between somebody in California and somebody in New York, right?
Oh, absolutely. As long as the deal is big enough that it makes sense that the buyer can come anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
I am more than happy to help. I'll be the first one to tell you. If it's a smaller type deal, I'll be the first one to recommend get yourself a local business broker, because it doesn't make sense to use me if I'm not local. But if it's big enough that we're going to market this nationally, and to your point, maybe the business is in Florida, and this is a typical case. The business could be in Florida, the buyer could be, from California, from Mexico, from Canada. If we're working at that level, then certainly, we're all on an equal footing. I would be more than happy to work with you. And at some point, we'll all go and meet in Florida or wherever the business is, and hopefully it gets done. By the way, one thing, maybe I'll just mention this too, because sometimes this comes into play. I do speak Spanish. So if it's something that again, Florida is a very typical case, but again, California, Texas, whatever, sometimes people feel more comfortable speaking Spanish, then I can help you with that too.
Excellent. Bilingual. That always helps. So great. So how do people find you? What's the best way to find you?
Well, the easiest way is to, quite honestly, just call me right on my personal cell phone. It's area code 484-358-9470. Again, 484-358-9470. If you want to email me, it's as simple as Sal 459 at yahoo.com. Again, Sal 459 at yahoo.com. And those are the two best ways to get a hold of me.
Excellent. And you have a website, you're on LinkedIn, so they can find you there. But really, it's nice that someone could just pick up the phone and talk to you, because that might be the easiest way. A lot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Maybe another tip is don't be shy. Call me on the phone. I don't mind. Honestly, even if you want to call me on a Saturday and a Sunday, trust me, I don't mind. So yeah, I try to be as reachable and as approachable as possible.
Excellent. Is there anything else that you want to say in this video that people should know about you? Other than
No, the only thing is again, the only thing I want to emphasize is start as early as possible, whether it's you're thinking of selling, whether it's you're thinking of buying. These processes take a lot longer than you think. I don't mind having a conversation again, literally years before you want to pull the trigger. It doesn't bother me at all. And I think it can help you a lot. And maybe the only other thing is, again, for $9.99, you get the electronic version. You get a lot of really, really good information. I wrote it, geared towards people that don't have a financial background or an investment banking background. I kept all the lingo out. I kept it as down to earth, as simple and as straightforward as possible. Everybody should be able to read it in 3-4 hours. And I honestly think it's worth the money. And then after that, call me and we can start the process, or at least, get you situated for success a couple years down the road.
excellent. Well, thank you, Sal.
Thank you, Elizabeth.